Good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for November the 5th. Today we are reading together in First Chronicles chapters 13 and 14. First Chronicles chapters 13 and 14. These texts go together. They describe for us the events of Abijah, what happened during his reign over Judah, and then what happened when Asa his son becomes king in his place. So let's read about that here in First Chronicles 13 and 14, beginning Second Chronicles chapter 13, verse number 1. Second Chronicles 13, verse number 1. In the 18th year of Israel's king Jeroboam, Abijah became king over Judah, and he reigned 3 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Micaiah, daughter of Uriel. She was from Gibeah. There was a war between Abijah and Jeroboam. Abijah set his army of warriors in order with 400,000 fit young men. Jeroboam arranged his army of 800,000 fit young men in battle formation against him. So at this point, we have Israel being twice the size of Judah. Then Abijah stood on Mount Zemaraim, which is in the hill country of Ephraim, and said, Jeroboam and all Israel, hear me. Don't you know that Yahweh, God of Israel, gave the kingship over Israel to David and his descendants forever by a covenant of salt? But Jeroboam, son of Nebat, a servant of Solomon, son of David, rose up and rebelled against his Lord. Then worthless and wicked men gathered around him to resist Rehoboam, son of Solomon, when Rehoboam was young, inexperienced, and unable to assert himself against them. And now you are saying you can't assert yourself against Yahweh's kingdom, which is in the hand of one of David's sons. You are a vast number, and have with you the golden calves that Jeroboam made for you as gods. Didn't you banish the priests of Yahweh, the descendants of Aaron and the Levites, and make your own priests like the peoples of other lands do? Whoever comes to ordain himself with a young bull and 7 rams may become a priest of what are not gods. But as for us, Yahweh is our God. We have not abandoned him. The priests ministering to Yahweh are descendants of Aaron, and the Levites serve at their tasks. They offer a burnt offering and fragrant incense to Yahweh every morning and every evening. And they set the rows of the bread of the presence on the ceremonial clean table. They light the lamps of the gold lampstands every morning. We are carrying out the requirements of Yahweh our God, while you have abandoned him. Look, God and his priests are with us at our head. The trumpets are ready to sound the charge against you, Israelites. Don't fight against Yahweh, God of your ancestors, for you will not succeed. Now Jeroboam had sent an ambush around to advance from behind them, so they were in front of Judah, and the ambush was behind them. Judah turned and discovered that the battle was in front of them and behind them, so they cried out to Yahweh. Then the priests blew their trumpets, and the men of Judah raised a battle cry. When the men of Judah raised the battle cry, God routed Jeroboam and all Israel before Abijah and Judah. So the Israelites fled before Judah, and God handed them over to them. Then Abijah and his people struck them with a mighty blow, and 500,000 fit young men of Israel were killed. The Israelites were subdued at that time. The Judahites succeeded because they depended on Yahweh, the God of their ancestors. Abijah pursued Jeroboam and captured some cities from him, Bethel, Jeshanah, and Ephron, along with their surrounding villages. Jeroboam no longer retained his power during Abijah's reign. Ultimately, Yahweh struck him, and he died. However, Abijah grew strong, acquired 14 wives, and fathered 22 sons and 16 daughters. The rest of the events of Abijah's reign, along with his ways and his sayings, are written in the writing of the prophet Iddo. Abijah rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David. His son Asa became king in his place. During his reign, the land experienced peace for 10 years. Asa did what was good and right in the sight of Yahweh his God. He removed the pagan altars in the high places. He shattered their sacred pillars and chopped down the Asherah poles. He told the people of Judah to seek Yahweh, God of their ancestors, and carry out the instruction and the commands. He also removed the high places and the shrines from all the cities of Judah, and the kingdom experienced peace under him. Because the land experienced peace, Asa built fortified cities in Judah. No one made war with him in those days because Yahweh gave him rest. So he said to the people of Judah, let's build these cities and surround them with walls and towers, with doors and bars. The land is still ours because we sought Yahweh our God. We sought him, and he gave us rest on every side. So they built and succeeded. Asa had an army of 300,000 men from Judah, bearing large shields and spears, and 280,000 from Benjamin, bearing regular shields and drawing the bow. All these were valiant warriors. Then Zerah the Cushite came against them with an army of 1,000,000 men and 300 chariots. They came as far as Marashah. So Asa marched out against him and lined up in battle formation in the Zephathah valley at Marashah. Then Asa cried out to Yahweh his God, Yahweh, there is no one besides you to help the mighty and those without strength. Help us, Yahweh our God, for we depend on you. And in your name we have come against this large army. Yahweh, you are our God. Do not let a mere mortal hinder you. So Yahweh routed the Cushites before Asa and before Judah, and the Cushites fled. Then Asa and the people who were with him pursued them as far as Gerar. The Cushites fell until they had no survivors, for they were crushed before Yahweh and his army. So the people of Judah carried off a great supply of loot. Then they carried all the cities, and then they attacked all the cities around Gerar because the terror of Yahweh was on them. They also plundered all the cities, since there was a great deal of plunder in them. They also attacked the tents of the herdsmen and captured many sheep and camels. And then, we're told, they returned to Jerusalem. And that is the text of 2 Chronicles, chapters 13 and 14. 2 Chronicles 13 and 14. We're told in these two chapters the story, a summarized version of the stories of two of Judah's kings. You might notice as well that the focus here in 2 Chronicles is certainly on Judah. Those kings of Israel are mentioned. Of this point, it's only been Jeroboam, and there will be some mention, I believe, of other kings of Israel, but certainly the emphasis in this text is on Judah. That's what the chroniclers really want to focus on, because it is within Judah that they had an example of faithfulness, certainly much more often than what can be found in Israel. And here within chapters 13 and 14, we do find faithfulness on the part of both Abijah and Asa. Abijah is going to battle against Jeroboam, and he's outnumbered 2-1, it seems. And he tells Jeroboam, you're barking up the wrong tree, bud. You guys are the ones who are in the wrong here. We are the rightful people of Yahweh. We continue to serve Yahweh. Look at y'all. Y'all are serving calf idols, and you've abandoned Yahweh. You've even tried to make your own priesthood like the nations do. Don't do this. Do not fight against us. Don't fight against Yahweh of your ancestors, for you will not succeed. That's the message of Abijah to Jeroboam and his warriors. Don't do it. Don't fight against. It's not that you're just fighting against us. You're fighting against Yahweh. Don't do that, for you won't succeed. But Jeroboam had already set up an ambush to where he had the Judahites surrounded on both from the front and the rear. And whenever whenever Abijah recognizes that they were surrounded, we'll want to note that they raised the battle cry. They cried out to Yahweh. And the rightful priest, blew the horn. The men of Judah raised their battle cry. And when the men of Judah raised the battle cry, God routed Jeroboam and all Israel before Abijah and Judah. God handed them over to them. Then Abijah and his people struck them with mighty blow. Again, who defeated Jeroboam and his army? Was it God? Yes. Was it Abijah? Yes. It was both. That this victory was accomplished through Abijah by Yahweh. He made this happen. And why did he make it happen? Or excuse me, how was this made to happen? It was made to happen because they depended on Yahweh. That's the key here. Chapters 13 and 14, it all comes down to one thing. That these two kings, they depended on Yahweh. They showed faithfulness to the covenant of their God, Yahweh, whereas Jeroboam did not. Remember, Jeroboam sets the standard for evil in the people of Israel, pertaining to especially worship of Yahweh, setting up the golden calves and all that, the priesthood and such, the evil that was done there. Because of that, he failed. And many of the kings of Israel, or all, I guess we should say, would continue to fail because of their evil and their wickedness. But as for Abijah, as for his son Asa, things continue to go well. And again, that is predicated upon the fact that Asa did what was good and right in the sight of Yahweh. He removed the pagan altars, the high places, the sacred pillars, the Asherah poles, and he told the people that they needed to seek Yahweh, the Yahweh God of their ancestors, and to carry out the instruction and the commands. Because of this, the kingdom experienced peace for 10 years. This is the benefit of faithfulness. They submitted to Yahweh, and Yahweh exalted them. They humbled themselves before Yahweh to worship him and to follow him, to honor the covenant, and Yahweh exalted them. He gave them peace for 10 years. They were even able to go and to fortify many of the cities that had been broken down, we assume previously, during the raids of Shishak. They were presumably build those up again. Well, what happens whenever another army does come up against Israel? Well, we have here Zerah, the Cushite, comes against them, and Asa goes out to march against him, but he cries out to Yahweh. He doesn't depend upon his own strength, but he cries out to Yahweh. There's no one like you. You give help to those who are mighty. You give help to those who are not mighty. So help us. We depend on you. You are our God. Help us fight against our enemies. Do not let a mere mortal hinder you. So what does Yahweh do? Yahweh empowers them. They routed the Cushites. They fled. They chased them. They left no survivors. They crushed them, and they took all the things within their land as well. So because of Asa's good leadership in this moment here in chapter 14, because he did what was right in Yahweh's sight, because he removed the paganistic elements from the land, because he told the people to seek Yahweh and to carry out the instruction and the commands, because he did all these things, there was peace and there was the ability to build themselves up. And whenever there was somebody who came against them, he focused the people's attention on Yahweh and his strength. And guess what? They had success. It seems very obvious to me that the chronicler here is showing, again, this very similar pattern of whenever we were faithful to Yahweh, great things happened. And that would be the motivation to those in the post-exilic period at this time. Just do what they did. Show faithfulness. Do what is right before Yahweh. Humble yourself before him, and he too will exalt you to a great and wonderful and blessed position. If you have any questions or comments about this text here in 2 Chronicles chapters 13 and 14, please feel free to leave that in the comment section below. I really appreciate the good comments I've been getting recently. Just looking at some of these things that are found here within text, reading with a keen eye and finding out and identifying some good thoughts and questions. I really, really do appreciate those. Hope everybody has a great rest of your Sunday, especially as we get ready to gather here in a little while for our Bible studies and our worship assembly. It is the first Sunday of the month, so we'll be doing our next to last regularly scheduled We Are lesson for the month or for the year. And this month in November, we're going to be in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 5 through 17, looking at how we are holy. We are to be holy. And this is predicated upon the fact that the text says there that we are God's field. We are his building. We are his temple. And because of that, we are to be holy. So we'll be talking about that today and some of the teachings that are found there within that text and what that demands of us. Again, hope everybody has a great rest of your Saturday. Looking forward to worshiping with everybody here, or excuse me, Sunday. Hope everybody has a great rest of your Sunday. Looking forward to worshiping with you here in a little bit. Take care and God bless.